So let's start here. This is the administration interface for Microsoft Azure Cloud Platform, and I want to give you just a bit of sense of how important these sort of facilities are. So administration interface like this is normally and publicly facing anyone with an internet connection can access it. So let's just take a few minutes to talk about some of the damage that can be done if an attacker can get hold of an administration interface like this one here. So if an attacker get hold of an administrator attacker like this one, so for an example, they could start to have a look at some of the services that you are running under the My Cloud account services, such as website, or as you call them, app services in the left hand side bar. As an example, websites such as Hack Yourself Fast is a deliberately vulnerable website that used to demonstrate typical web security risk. As you can see in the left side picture in this slide, it runs up here in Azure, and where an attacker able to compromising my administration facilities. This is what they would able to see in the first picture of this slide, but perhaps more importantly that be able to see things like my app setting. These are all available via the portal, because as that infrastructure is virtualized and abstracted away into the thing that we know and call the cloud. And in fact, in this particular course, we are looking at a platform as a service implementation of a website, and all the administration facilities are readily accessible in the browser. So for an example, through my application setting, we will be able to see some of the value pairs and actual app services, and very frequently app settings that will be secret in them. However, very often we would be able to looking at things like API keys, credential, other secrets that are meant to remain secret and not be accessible to an attacker. Another good example that is that connection string. This gets you an access to the database. So these are the real connection string of this particular web application that you can see in Azure by default, that has hidden info security reason. But an attacker with access to my administration facility would able to see the connection string and make a connection to the database and extract any data that are into the account in that connection string which has access to, along with accusing things like, as you can see in this previous picture, my app setting and my connection setting. An attacker could access all sorts of other cloud construct that anyone might be using. So for example, like Azure storage implementation, blog storage, table storage, message queues, and all sorts of accessibles. When you have the access to the portal, accessing information that I already have in the portal is one particular class of attack, and certainly that is the thing that most people are worried about. But for an attacker that can do damage by doing something like creating a virtual machine inside this, as you see in the second picture. Now let's say you attack, let's say I am with my attack head down and JS5 machine sounds about just right. So why is this right? Well, because it's going to cost the person who owns the cloud server over $8,000 a month. This is a different class of malicious altogether. This isn't about taking any data, although certainly if they have access to this portal, then that's one of the things they could do. But this is just about causing the economic derisk. We are going to look at something very similar shortly, which is economic denial of sustainability. But one thing of this risk is that which is run with a portal like this, and indeed all the cloud providers do have a public facing portals which is like this in this, and it is exceptionally easy for cost to escalate. We can spend a lot money than just $8,000 a month very simply. So from a cloud computing risk perspective, a very tangible risk and is that the cost can escalate out of the control anonymously, and which is quickly by using an attacker who goes through and provision the machine like this, or even because the individual responsible for managing the resources over the provision or simply make a mistake and choose the wrong size resources. So we didn't have this problem when we are able to ordering physical infrastructure, having it shipped on the site. So we had many other problems, no doubt about it, but we really didn't have the same problem as someone going in and ordering up. That caused a huge cost of being queued or almost instantly, as their in their pool of administration facilities like these are extremely valuable. And later on this we will be talk about how to harden the cloud, and one of the things that we will be look at is when we make sure that a particular resources is well protected as a composable B. So for now though, let's take a look at some of the few different ways that an attacker might actually gain access to the administration, and let's talk about just some of the things and ways that an attacker can gain access to administration facilities and of course access private information or run up their costs. So for an example, if someone with access to the administration facilities reuses their credential, those credentials may be compromised from another service, and certainly we see this happen many times, and data breaches that reuse the access of administration facility of the cloud provider. So in a case like this, the username and password to a portal such as Microsoft is literally obtained in the attacker, and that reuse the administration facilities in a case like this, and there is clearly a fault on a behalf of a person who owns the account and take the risk of that account by taking and reuse the credentials. Another possible attack is someone like session hijacking. Now this is a quite a different, because what we are talking about here is and what would happen to boil down a flaw in the administration facility software. So for an example, if they weren't flagging their cookies as SCP only, and they had a reflected cross-site scripting vulnerability, and an attacker was able to convince the victim to follow a link, and that link we could have access of a session hijacking. And we talked about this and previously with likes of ethical hijacking and session hijacking, and that goes through many of the different ways that can happen. The reason why I have included it here is that the demonstrate that the weakness in the administration facility itself, which leads to compromise. And now this is important because it recognized that those with access to the portal could do anything, and ultimately these portal themselves are just more web software than any typical web vulnerabilities. The different risk again is exposed to keys, and what I would like to do here is actually give you an example of where this happened. Let me talk about in 2015 a web developer accidentally made it to get half respiratory in public. The background is that the Visual Studio 25 behaved in an unexpected fashion when he attempted to create the when he created the repository, but be able to do that as it may, he ended up with the repository going public, and the repository include an AWS case, and that key was very quickly stolen by someone monitoring GitHub for public repositories and used to provision resources that allow the attacker to mine the bitcoins there very quickly. So he saw this bill run up to $6,500 within the hour, which speaks to the previous point I just showed you in terms of how easy it is to provision and very extensive resources of all this possible because of this AWS administration facilities, just like Microsoft Azure and just like so many other cloud provided dashboards it's out there facing the public. It is literally one keys or one set of credential away from an attacker having full control of it, so that the expose the keys. So let's go back and take a look at one more possible cause of administration facility compromise, and the final one is social engineering. So this is another topic I talked about previously, is ethical hijacking or social engineering, and in there I talked about many of the different ways that valuable pieces of information can be extracted from targets, and the contents of gaining access to an administration facility. That target could be the individual whose account and attacks wants access to, but it also could be someone of a support side of the cloud itself. So let's move on, take a better look at the social engineering, because in the context of administration facilities of cloud service, it is a really important topic to be aware of.